I say? I'm shocked. Nice to meet you all. With some of you I've already spoken a bit. Oh, and a dog. Hello, dog. What can I say? I don't know where to start exactly. I'm honestly shocked twice because I don't know exactly why I was accepted here, but I'll do my best. To give you a little background, I finished my bachelor degree in physics, and I got interested in philosophy and let's say history of science. And at the same time, I became interested in animal rights. Obviously, I became a vegan. And while doing and reading science, I presume I see some patterns that would explain why it took so much time for us, the European civilization, to take serious a notion like animal rights. And the title of the talk, A Personal Historical Voyage, I want to emphasize right from the start the words personal and voyage. Because as much as I want it to be an objective, completely devoid of personal feelings and emotions presentation, I'm sure it will not be, and I'm sure I will present my side of the story. As much as I want it to be objective, I know it will not be. So yeah, it is not good. Okay. So yeah, keep that in mind. I want also to ask you to be rude and ask questions when you feel like it. Raise your hands or, I don't know, shout.
Where do you come from?
Does it matter?
No, your accent. I wanted to place your accent.
That's a very rude question, actually.
Where would you say I come from?
I don't know, no idea.
Not everybody can be
I
from
come
Austria or
from
from wherever.
Romania.
I think it's a rude question.
Does anybody hear me?
Yeah.
I'm trying to speak. No. Did anybody? Did somebody say no? Okay, I'll take that as whatever. Okay, so if we want to talk about history in general regarding Europe, we kind of need to take into account two things, at least from my point of view: religion and philosophy. And let's start with my favorite. Am I allowed to show nude pictures? Okay, so I guess everyone knows this painting of Michelangelo, symbolizing the Christian narrative of the creation. And I guess this painting can be interpreted in many ways, but one thing strikes me as obvious right from the start. I mean, Adam is there alone, and this kind of tells me that he's kind of some sort of unique being in the universe. Yeah, we see women in the painting too, not by the side of Adam, which should tell you something. But at least women are considered in this painting. I mean, I don't see other species in this painting. So, without any further comments, make of this what you will. But then again, some of you may object, because this painting was finished, I don't know, 15 something, 1512, I think, somewhere at the beginning of the 16th century. And some of you may object that this does not really show the beginnings of the early Christianity in Europe. And this argument may be valid. And for that reason, let's go to a more earlier source. And we find Saint Augustine saying that there are no common rights between us and the beasts and the trees. Giving example, the miracle performed by Jesus by sending the devils into a herd of swine after exorcising a man. And I think this kind of sums up the religious Christian view with which we begin our, let's say, European civilization. Okay, but this is one side of the story. The other side of the story should be earlier Greek philosophy. And early Greek thinkers like Aristotle, Plato, and company had a very specific model of the universe. Their physics told them, and us I guess, that the Earth is the center of the universe and every other thing revolves around us. And this was kind of the philosophical dogma for centuries. And this philosophical dogma, I should say, mixed with religious Christian dogma. Why are there some? Doesn't matter. These two ideas combined gave rise to a very interesting concept of the universe. By seeing God, the most superior being in the universe, and man as being the supreme of his creation, we could talk about something called the great chain of being. And we started making hierarchies of things. The most inferior stuff that we found, according to our classification, were minerals at the bottom, followed by plants, followed by animals. Humans were somewhere in the middle, and after that followed angels. And right from the start, we see animals as inferior to human beings. So you kind of see why some Christian thinkers said what they said. You know, Protagoras, a very old Greek philosopher, said at one time that man is the measure of all things. And whatever that may meant for his philosophy, the tragic, sad part, and I don't know, funny at the same time, is that this was, and I guess it still is, literally true. I mean, this is a small list of measurement units based on human aspects, right? Foot, palm, pace. Take, for example, this image, which I took without any shame from Wikipedia. Only from our palm we derived 6 units by which we measure things. Maybe for some of you this wouldn't be that much of a deal, but I guess in time this kind of way of thinking sort of ingrained in our, let's say, collective consciousness. And once we start measuring all the things by human standards, can we really blame Thomas Aquinas for saying that it is not wrong for man to make use of them, animals, either by killing or in any other way whatsoever? I mean, it would seem that every evidence which we had at the time sustained in one way or another his point. I don't know, I wouldn't really blame him. So, before the scientific revolution, I would say this painting modified in Photoshop kind of summarizes the image which we as humans had of ourselves. And by humans, I mean men. And by men, I mean mostly white men. But that's another part of the story. So, white man, center of the universe, measuring all things by our standards. And of course, Greek physics, which told us that the Earth as a planet is at the center. But one small detail. Greek thinkers thought that changes could only occur only in the so-called sublunary portion of the cosmos. Everything beside, further than the moon was unchangeable. Changes could not occur further than the moon. Only the sublunary, the so-called sublunary area was the place where changes can occur. And that's a small detail, but a detail that will matter in the next slide. Finally, some, let's say, modern science happened. I'm not going to go into much details here. As you know, Copernicus developed the heliocentric model of the universe, but at the same time, I mean not at the same time, 100 years later, a dude named Tycho Brahe, I hope I'm not mispronouncing him too badly, made an interesting discovery. One night, he was a really good astronomer. He had his own island on which he made astronomical observations. And in one night, he noticed a bright light in the sky, which his measurements showed was not part of the sublunary world. That meant he measured changes somewhere around here, outside the sublunary area, which meant it kind of contradicted the early Greek philosophers. And that's what got us started on this road. And also he developed his own model of the cosmos. And so, after 1572, we had actually three models of the universe. We had the Greek system with Earth at the center, we had the Copernican system with the Sun at the center, and we had Tycho system, which was kind of the mix, a sort of mix between the two. But what did these two have in common? Well, they both downgraded, in a way, the Earth from being the center of the universe. So that was kind of the first blows that science gave to our egocentric egos, I should say. And later on, as David Wooten, a contemporary historian of science, said, the introduction of the metric system completely destroyed the idea that the universe was made on the same scale of men. We completely renounced these ways of measuring things in tens of ways. Of course, you could argue that it was kind of logical to renounce the inch and the pace for a more standardized unit. But wasn't that kind of obvious right from the start? I mean, I would argue that our anthropocentric concepts of ourselves have had something to do with this. Okay, so we kind of resolved the first issue, the physical place of ourselves in the universe, but one aspect remains. We saw ourselves unique beings in more than one way. Okay, we downgraded the Earth as being only one of the planets, but what about rationality? Aren't we the only rational being in the universe, and this kind of gives us a small, special place in the cosmos? Well, for this we need to go back again to philosophy, and two concepts began to develop: utilitarianism and Kantianism. An earlier proponent of utilitarianism was Bentham, and here you have the really famous quote that animal advocates use almost everywhere: can they reason or can they talk, but can they suffer? So this comes from him. And at the same time we have Kant, which saw man as being the only rational being in the universe, and that gave him the moral value that we cherish. And every other being that wasn't rational didn't really count into his philosophy. Well, I kind of see, when I see Kant, I kind of go back to Protagoras, which was really an old dude, which said that the man was the measure of all things. When I see Kant, I kind of see Protagoras, and I don't really see progress here. But anyway, I don't really want to make further comments. And sometime later came Charles Darwin with his theory of evolution. And in this theoretical model, the statement humans are unique becomes kind of meaningless. I mean, every species by definition is unique. A mouse is unique, a panda is unique, a cat is unique. Of course, humans too are unique. But at the same time, it implies that the difference between species are differences in kind, in degree, not in kind. And this is simply put in evidence by this photo. A chimp using a tool. Before 1960s, everyone thought this was impossible. And simply observing other species completely turned our view of ourselves upside down. When Jane Goodall made this really simple observation, if you think about it, Louis Leakey, a contemporary, made a very interesting comment. Now we must redefine tool, redefine man, or accept chimpanzees as humans. And I don't know, doesn't this kind of make you wonder how ignorant we were of other species? I mean, if you think about it, what did Jane Goodall really do? I mean, say you are Jane Goodall and I'm the chimp, and you saw me using a stick. Was that a complicated observation to make? Why did it take us 2,000 years to make this very simple, obvious observation? It seems to me that we are simply biased. We thought of ourselves special before really noticing the evidence around us. So, modern philosophy, I would say, evolved, and now we have Peter Singer versus, I don't know how many have heard of Tom Regan. Interestingly, that it rhymes with vegan. Yeah, it was the first thing I thought about when I heard his name. So, yeah, you have Singer with his code that I believe was used in the documentary Earthlings. If a being suffers, then can be no moral justification for refusing to take that suffering into consideration. Tom Regan he unfortunately passed away, I think last year or 2 years ago. Tom Regan tried to expand the Kantian philosophy to include other beings. He developed concepts like subjects of a life. And also, our scientific view of animals evolved. We have something called the Cambridge Declaration of Consciousness, which I cite almost anywhere I go when people ask me for evidence. I mean, we do not really consider ourselves unique anymore in the animal kingdom. We have no basis to really make that claim. But unfortunately, some scientists still have this metaphysical, I should say outdated view of ourselves. We are made of star stuff, as if the dog isn't made of star stuff, or the sun isn't made of star stuff. Even the sun is made of star stuff, because the sun is a second generation star, and consequently is made of star stuff. But yeah, we are, I don't know, we keep wanting to think of ourselves more than we actually are. And the problem is that this way of thinking kind of harms this ecosystem in which we all live. And as a conclusion, what can I say? I think if there were only one thing that I learned from astronomy, for example, is that we are not at the center of the universe. We kept wanting for us to be. We put the planet there. The planet we showed it was not. We put the sun at the center of the universe. Also, we showed that the sun is not at the center of the universe. It's just one of billions of other suns. Then we thought about our galaxy, that it's special. Even the galaxy is not special. It's just a galaxy among other galaxies. And if astronomy taught me one thing, in the words of Carl Sagan, it taught me humility. And I think this also applies and makes possible the discussion of animal rights in Europe, at least. And I think this is all I want to say. Please really object to what I have said. I don't want you to expect of me as being, I don't know, a prick that believes of himself that he is some kind of guru that found truth under a rock and I preach it to everyone. No, I want to have debates and explanations and approximations when possible. And that's about it.